The ground shook before the doors even opened, and I gripped the edge of my podium as the Korath Ashclaw slammed its full weight against the arena gate. Dust rained down from the ceiling. Somewhere behind me, a student screamed and then laughed nervously, the way people do when they realize they are still alive. My name is Professor Kaleth Voss, and in 30 years of teaching xenobiology at the Interstellar Academy, I had never seen an opening this violent. The beast trial was supposed to be a controlled demonstration. Each species brought forward the strongest creature their world had ever produced. And we studied it, respected it, and let the students understand what true power looked like across the galaxy. That day, power looked like chaos. The Ashclaw reared onto its hind legs, easily 3 times the height of a grown Threxian, its claws long enough to split a transport pod in half. Its handler struggled to hold the chain, and for one terrifying second, I thought the chain would snap. It held. Barely. Beside it, coiled in a reinforced glass container, the void serpent from Threxa flicked its forked tongue at the crowd, patient and silent, the kind of silent that made your skin crawl. It did not need to roar. Everyone already knew what it could do. And then there was the Vundari hive matron, a creature the size of a small building, her body pulsing with hundreds of tiny eyes, each one tracking a different student in the stands. She did not blink. She did not need to. She simply watched. I stood at the center of the arena floor, my heart's pounding in my chest, and called out the next name on my list. Marcus Reyes. Bring forward your beast. Silence. Then footsteps. Soft ones. Almost gentle. I turned, expecting to see chains, cages, restraints, something enormous being wheeled in on a heavy platform. Instead, I saw a young man walking calmly across the sand, holding a small carrier bag in one hand, like he was heading to a picnic. The crowd began to murmur. Someone laughed, then more people laughed, and the sound spread through the stands like fire through dry grass. Marcus did not seem to notice. He set the carrier down gently in the center of the arena, crouched beside it, and unzipped the top. 2 small heads popped out, fur the color of warm sand, ears too big for their faces, eyes wide and curious. They stumbled out of the bag on unsteady legs, sniffing the air, tails wagging in short, excited bursts. They were cubs, actual cubs, no bigger than my forearm. The laughter in the stands grew louder. Someone shouted, "Is that a joke?" Another voice called out, "Professor, did he understand the assignment?" I felt my face grow warm with something between embarrassment and disbelief. I had personally reviewed every submission form. I had personally warned Marcus about the seriousness of this trial, and now he stood in front of the entire academy, the Ashclaw snarling 20 feet away, presenting 2 trembling little creatures that looked like they belonged in a nursery, not an arena. I walked toward him, keeping my voice low, trying to salvage what dignity I could for both of us. "Marcus," I said quietly, "the assignment was to bring your world's strongest beast, not its youngest." He looked up at me, unbothered, and smiled. "I did bring our strongest beast, Professor. These are cubs," I said. "They are barely weaned. They cannot even stand properly." "They're dogs," he said simply. "Well, puppies right now. But yes, dogs." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. It never came. "Humans have known dogs for over 30,000 years, he continued, crouching down to steady one of the cubs as it tripped over its own paws. "We didn't just find them in the wild and leave them there. We raised them beside us, trained them, bonded with them, and in return, they gave us something no other species in this arena today can offer." "And what is that?" I asked, my patience thinning as the crowd's laughter continued behind me. "Loyalty that doesn't break," he said. "Even when it's small, even when it's outmatched, even when everything around it says it should run." I opened my mouth to respond, but a deep, rattling growl cut through the air. The Ashclaw had turned its enormous head toward the 2 cubs. The crowd went silent immediately, the kind of silence that presses against your ears. Every student in the stands leaned forward. The Ashclaw's handler tightened his grip on the chain, his knuckles pale. I expected the cubs to bolt. Any sensible creature would have. The Ashclaw alone could have swallowed them without noticing the difference in weight, and behind it stood a serpent that could strike faster than the eye could follow, and a hive matron with enough eyes to watch every possible escape route at once. Instead, the two cubs stopped moving. Not out of fear. I know fear. I have studied fear in over 400 species during my career, and what I saw in those small dark eyes was not fear, it was focus. They turned toward the ash claw together, small ears pinned back, tiny bodies suddenly rigid and still. One of them let out a low sound from its chest, barely audible, but unmistakably a warning. A warning, from a creature that could fit inside a shoe. The ash claw's growl faltered. I noticed it before anyone else in the crowd did, because I had spent my life reading the subtle language of predators. The ash claw's weight shifted backward, just slightly, its ears, normally forward and aggressive, tilted back. Its enormous claws, which moments ago had been raking gouges into the arena floor, went still. It was hesitating. An apex predator, the strongest creature on its entire homeworld, was hesitating in front of two puppies that had not yet grown their adult teeth. I turned to Marcus, my voice barely above a whisper. What is happening? He did not look surprised at all. They can smell what's behind us, he said. All of it. Thousands of years of it. Behind us? There's nothing behind us. Not behind you and me, he said. Behind them. Behind every dog that ever stood beside a human. The ash claw isn't looking at two puppies, Professor. It's looking at what puppies become. And some part of its instincts, some ancient survival math running underneath all that muscle, is telling it that whatever comes next is not worth finding out. I wanted to dismiss it as nonsense, the kind of proud storytelling humans were known for across a dozen trade routes and diplomatic meetings. But my eyes did not lie to me, and neither did 30 years of training. The Wundari hive matron, who had been tracking every single student and creature in the arena with mechanical precision, suddenly turned every one of her hundreds of eyes toward the two small cubs. And then, one by one, those eyes began to close. Not in sleep, in submission. A murmur of confusion rippled through the crowd, quieter now, edged with something new, not laughter anymore, something closer to unease. Professor Voss, called out Dale, a sharp-tongued student from the Threxian delegation who had brought the void serpent. Surely you're not suggesting these overgrown pets pose any threat to real predators. I turned to answer him, but Marcus spoke first, calm as ever. Ask your serpent, he said. Ask it why it hasn't moved in the last 30 seconds. Dale scoffed, but when he turned to check on his creature, his confidence cracked. The void serpent, usually restless, tongue constantly tasting the air for threats, had gone completely still. Its head was lowered, its body, normally coiled tight and ready to strike, had gone slack against the glass. That's impossible, Dale muttered. It's not impossible, Marcus said. It's memory, ancient memory. Every predator alive carries instincts passed down from ancestors who learned hard lessons about certain kinds of prey, prey that doesn't fight alone, prey that doesn't panic, prey that hunts in packs, remembers faces, holds grudges across generations, and never, ever stops when it decides something is a threat. I felt a chill despite the arena's climate controls. You're saying dogs taught predators fear. I'm saying humans did, Marcus said, and dogs were the first proof of it. We didn't outrun the fastest predators on our world. We didn't outmuscle the strongest ones. We didn't even outclaw or outfang most of them. What we did was decide, a very long time ago, that we would never fight alone again. We took a wild, dangerous animal, and instead of killing it or fearing it, we made it family. We turned a competitor into a companion. And every creature that has ever hunted alongside something bigger, wilder, and older than itself, learns very quickly not to underestimate the bond, only the size. The arena had gone almost completely silent now. Even the wind machines used for atmospheric effect seemed muted. I looked down at the two puppies again. One had settled onto its haunches, watching the ash claw calmly, patiently, without a hint of the panic I would expect from any prey animal facing certain death. The other had turned slightly, positioning its small body so that its back pressed lightly against its siblings. Back to back. Instinctive, coordinated, utterly without fear. They're just puppies, I said again, though my voice had lost its earlier certainty. Yes, Marcus said. And that's exactly the point, Professor. If two untrained puppies, barely out of the nursery, can make an ash claw hesitate, a void serpent freeze, and a hive matron look away, imagine what a grown dog can do, standing beside a human who has trained with it for years. Imagine what an entire species can do when it decides that strength was never meant to be carried alone. Dale, still shaken, tried one more time to regain control of the conversation. This proves nothing. Put your creatures in an actual fight, and we will see how long that confidence lasts. Marcus turned to him, and for the first time, something sharper flickered behind his calm expression. Not anger, certainty. You want proof? He asked. He looked to me. Professor Voss, may I? Every instinct in my body told me to say no, to end the demonstration immediately before something went wrong in front of the entire academy. But something else, something curious and honest in me, made me nod instead. Marcus crouched low beside the two cubs and spoke a single word, soft and steady. Stay. The cubs did not move. They remained locked in position, backs pressed together, eyes fixed on the ash claw, small bodies trembling not with fear, but with something closer to readiness. The ash claw's handler, sensing the shift in the crowd, tried to pull his creature back, but the great beast would not move. It stood frozen, staring at the two small shapes across the sand, its enormous chest rising and falling in slow, uncertain breaths. Then, without warning, the smaller of the two puppies let out a sharp, high bark. It should have meant nothing. It was the sound of a child's toy, not a warning cry. But the ash claw flinched, actually flinched, its entire massive body jerking backward as if struck. Gasps rippled through the stands. The handler nearly lost his footing as the ash claw began backing away entirely, claws scraping deep grooves into the arena floor, its low growl now edged with something unmistakable. Fear. The strongest predator in the arena, brought forward as the pride of an entire warrior culture, was retreating from two puppies who had not yet grown into their own paws. The silence that followed was unlike anything I had experienced in my career. No laughter, no mockery, just the sound of wind machines and distant murmurs of disbelief spreading through the crowd like a wave. I turned slowly to face the stands, searching for words that could explain what everyone had just witnessed, because even I struggled to accept it, despite standing close enough to see every detail. Students, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Today's trial asked you to bring forward your world's strongest beast. I assumed that meant size, claws, fangs, raw physical power. I built 30 years of research on that assumption. I gestured toward Marcus and the two cubs, still calm, still steady, still unshaken despite the chaos they had caused. I was wrong. Dale opened his mouth to argue, but I raised a hand, and for once, he stayed quiet. What we witnessed today was not strength measured in muscle or size, I continued. It was strength measured in bond, in loyalty that predators across 1,000 worlds instinctively recognize and fear, because bonded strength does not tire, does not panic, and does not forget. A lone predator can be outlasted. A bonded pair, a pack, a family that fights together, cannot be so easily calculated. I looked directly at Marcus. Is that a fair summary? He smiled, scratching gently behind the ears of the puppy closest to him, who leaned into his hand without hesitation. Close enough, Professor, though I'd add one thing. Go on. Humans didn't just tame dogs, he said. We built the first alliance between two different species that had every reason to fear each other. A wolf and a human should have been enemies, competitors for the same prey, the same land, the same resources. Instead, somewhere in our history, someone decided to share a fire, share a meal, share a fight. And from that single decision, we built something no predator on this arena floor has ever encountered before. Not a bigger threat. A different kind of one. The crowd, quiet moments ago, began to whisper again, but this time, there was no mockery in it, only curiosity, respect even, spreading slowly through rows of students who had come expecting monsters, and instead received a lesson none of them would forget. I crouched down slowly, careful not to startle the cubs, and extended a hand toward the calmer of the two. It sniffed my fingers cautiously, then, to my surprise, pressed its small head against my palm. No fear, no aggression, Just quiet, simple trust. Incredible, I murmured. That's the part people miss, Marcus said. The scary part isn't the size of the beast humans bring into a fight, it's what that beast represents. A partnership built on trust that goes both ways. My dog would face down something 100 times its size, not because it doesn't understand the danger, but because it trusts that I would never ask it to face that danger alone. I stood back up, looking across the arena at the Ashclaw, still retreating cautiously toward its handler, its earlier aggression replaced with something far more careful. You've given this academy a great deal to reconsider, I said. I hope so, Marcus said. Strength isn't always about who can destroy the most. Sometimes it's about who refuses to abandon the smallest thing standing beside them, no matter what walks into the arena. The two puppies, sensing the tension finally easing, began wagging their tails again, tumbling over each other playfully, as if the entire confrontation had never happened. One of them let out a small, happy bark, and for the first time that day, laughter returned to the stands. But it was different laughter now, warmer, genuine, filled with something closer to wonder than mockery. I dismissed the trial early that day, unable to imagine any following demonstration matching what had just unfolded. As students slowly filed out of the arena, whispering excitedly among themselves, I remained behind, watching Marcus gather his two cubs back into their carrier, with the same gentle care he had shown from the very beginning. You knew this would happen, I said. It was not a question. I hoped it would, he admitted. Every predator carries memory passed down through instinct. I wasn't sure how strong that memory would be here, so far from home, among species that never encountered dogs before. But some fears run deeper than experience. Some warnings get passed down whether you've lived through them or not. I thought about that for a long moment, staring at the arena floor still marked with deep gouges from claws that had, only minutes ago, seemed unstoppable. I owe you an apology, I said finally. I doubted you. I nearly failed you before you even opened that carrier. Marcus shook his head, smiling. You didn't fail me, Professor. You just hadn't met a dog yet. He zipped the carrier closed gently, careful not to disturb the now sleepy cubs curled together inside, and slung it over his shoulder like it weighed nothing at all. There's a saying we have back home, he added, pausing at the edge of the arena. It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. I watched him walk away, the small carrier swaying gently with his steps, and found myself, for the first time in decades, completely speechless in front of a student. That night, I sat alone in my office, staring at the notes I had prepared for next year's beast trial rules. My pen hovered over the page for a long time, before I finally wrote a single new line beneath the trial's original instructions. Strength is not always measured by size. Clarify accordingly. I underlined it twice, then added one more note beneath it, quieter, more personal, meant only for myself. Humans will always read between the rules we write. Perhaps it is time we stopped writing rules that assume everyone measures strength the same way we do. Outside my window, the twin moons of the academy rose slowly over the training grounds, casting pale light across the arena where, only hours earlier, the galaxy's greatest predators had learned a lesson none of them would soon forget. Somewhere across the campus, in the quiet dormitory halls, two small puppies slept peacefully beside a young man who had never once doubted what he carried into that arena. And for the first time in my long career, I understood exactly why.